10 years ago, Misha Glenny's book, McMafia, hit bookstores, opening the world of global organized crime for all to see. It's now been turned into a riveting television series by the same name on BBC and AMC. It's especially tantalizing in an era when Russian and other global mafias crop up in the news headlines. We're pleased to welcome Misha Glenny back to our studio for his take on how things have changed over the last decade. Nice to see you.
Very nice to see you now.
It's a pleasure. Before we start talking about the TV series, which I just binge-watched over the past few days, let's show a clip to the audience. Let's take a look.
Because of my family background, I've made it a policy not to invest in Russia.
It is embarrassing to be Russian these days, but don't ever be ashamed of who you are.
Let me guess, you're a gangster.
Close.
Banker?
When I met your father, he was a businessman. And in his business, there was a lot of money. So it was very dangerous. In Russia, they call everyone a gangster.
Your uncle promised I could use your fund to move my money around.
Why would I say yes to you? I'm not a money launderer.
I thought maybe you were tired of being the English gentleman.
Neither you nor your family are safe.
What does it take to corrupt you?
Very exciting stuff. So your book by the same name was released 10 years ago. How did it come to be a TV series?
Well, actually, the book was first optioned the year before it was published. And it then went through various iterations with one or two production companies. And people had warned me not to get excited about it because these things never happen. But I did get, you know, the sort of full La La Land experience of being flown out to Hollywood and everyone telling me how much they loved my book and me and so on. Mm-hmm. So that was fun. But after about 5 years, I felt nothing is ever going to happen. But then I was approached by the writer Hossamini, the scriptwriter that is, and the director James Watkins. And from the minute I met Hoss and James, I knew I was dealing with two people who were really serious about the content of the book and were grappling with the idea of how do you take the world of a non-fiction crime book and turn it into a fictional TV show. Now, they had only worked in film before, and of course, everyone now is migrating from film to television because it's the more interesting medium, frankly, at the moment. So we then had this fantastic period of about a year or so when we were discussing what was the essence of the book that they wanted to fictionalize, or at least to show in a fictional story, and how could they integrate a compelling narrative into that authentic world of organized crime. So we faced quite a lot of challenges on the way in constructing that. Well, because the book itself doesn't have a single narrative. I go from country to country. Occasionally characters crop up there and then again later. But essentially what I was doing was mapping out the world of organized crime as it had globalized since the 1990s in the wake of the collapse of communism and in the wake of the globalization of capitalism. So they had to come up with the story. That's their job as scriptwriter and director. And they came across the idea of two families, one in London, one in Moscow, but the London one being an exiled Russian family that had been expelled by Putin. So you have a battle royale between these two families, and that is the heart of the story. But through that, we can bring in various bits of the book, and I'm very flattered that 2 or 3 of the storylines come more or less directly from the book, so sustain the authenticity.
So does that mean that it sounds like you do have say on how the show is run then?
To an extent, yes. I mean, when you hand over the rights to your book, you're handing over the book, you know. You can't complain if things don't go the way you want. But that's why I like working with Hoss and James, is they wanted me included because they wanted to make sure that the show was as authentic as possible. So they invited me into the writer's room. There were 5 writers, and that's a real privilege for an outsider to be in that room. And there, apart from getting a masterclass in how you write a television script, I was able to explain to them the world, in part by bringing in some of the characters in the book. I brought in one guy who was very involved with Russian organized crime in the 1990s. He came and gave them a talk about how the mafia worked in Russia. I had a criminal hacker come in and explain to them how he would engage in cyber criminal activity. And I had people like the head of Europol, the European Police Force, Rob Wainwright. He came in and explained to them about the problems from the police's perspective.
So authenticity was important to you?
It was absolutely critical, which is why, for example, we insist on using actors from the countries involved. So we have some absolutely superb Russian actors, Israeli actors, actors from Mumbai, from Bollywood, in fact, some Czech actors. And so when they're talking Russian amongst themselves, they're talking Russian amongst themselves, and you get subtitles, which for some audiences is challenging. But also, if they're talking English as a Russian would, as opposed to an English actor with a cod Russian accent.
Except for the main protagonist.
Except for Alex.
Yes.
And Alex, of course, is... I mean, it's very interesting. His father, Dmitry, the character Dmitry, has had to leave Russia, but he still has access to some of his ill-gotten gains. And what he's been doing with that is making sure that his children, the next generation, are actually brought up in the licit world and have the advantages that he didn't have. So Alex, the main character, has gone to private school in Britain and then done an MBA on the east coast of America.
And he's a banker.
So he's a very sophisticated banker. He's not a gangster at all. And he's more or less freed himself from his father's professional past. But of course, he has an identity crisis as somebody who's simultaneously English and Russian. And that identity crisis, which is actually born out of Hoss, the writer's own experience, he came from Iran when he was quite young. That identity crisis is something which increasingly lots of people understand, where you've got one foot in one culture and another foot in another culture.
And trying to determine where you fit in the world.
That's right.
And because the story is centered on two Russian families, I wonder, though, if you think it shows or it portrays Russians in an unfair light.
Well, that's certainly what the Russian embassy in London seemed to think when it issued a tweet after the first 2 episodes.
Really?
Yes, saying that McMafia was outrageous, trying to suggest that all Russians in London were gangsters. But both in the book and increasingly as you go through the series in the film, I certainly have been very insistent on making the point that the reason why Russians became involved in organized crime is not because Russians are intrinsically criminal in their behavior or inclined towards it. It's because in the 1990s, the Soviet Union and its planned economy, the ideology of communism collapsed. And you were at a sort of ground zero of social and economic relations. And what happens is you get businessmen, and I use the gender advisedly, springing up all over the place, entering into deals, being entrepreneurial, but there was no police force that could cope with dispute resolution. There was no commercial court system, commercial law. This was all foreign to them. And so instead, the businessman would employ what sociologists like to call privatized law enforcement agencies, but which we refer to colloquially as the mafia. So what that means is that the emergence of capitalism after the end of the Soviet Union in Russia was intimately linked with organized crime. In fact, I refer to them in the book as the midwives of capitalism. So that was the issue. It was because of a set of complex economic, political, and historical circumstances, and not because Russians are like that. So that's really the sort of key thing about that. I mean, I'd just add that the other phenomenon, apart from the historical phenomenon, apart from the collapse of communism, was the advent of globalization. All of a sudden, money and goods were moving around the world at incredible speed into territories where, for a long time, there had been a much reduced economic activity, so India, South Africa, Brazil, or whatever. And it was gangsters from all over the world who understood the possibilities that this offered. You can shift goods, you can do everything in cash, and then, thanks to things like offshore havens, tax havens, and things like that, you can launder the money and you can enjoy the good life in London, Paris, Montreal, wherever.
And then the internet has also created another addition to that.
Oh, that's complicated things even further. And we go into that in the show. This was something, I mean, I do write about cybercrime in the book, but for the show, what we wanted to do was to demonstrate what's been going on, particularly in the past 5 years, in which exercises law enforcement all over the world now. And that is, for, you know, a good 15, 20 years, you've had two separate strands. You've had traditional organized crime that, you know, you associate with The Godfather or The Sopranos or whatever. And then you have cybercrime. And the interesting thing is that in traditional organized crime, if you want to be in the game, you have to be able to use violence. Violence is at the core of your business, so that if your markets are threatened, you can intimidate the competition or law enforcement or whoever it is. Cybercrime is a revolutionary form of crime because for the first time, you don't need violence. You can be in Kazakhstan committing a crime against somebody in LA and then cashing out the money in Dubai, and you don't need a virtual baseball bat to do that. So it attracts a very different set of people to it because they don't need to have muscle. So,
and I'm sure, and I'm also thinking that they could work on them by themselves instead of working in a group.
They don't have to work in a group.
Yeah.
As it happens now, cybercrime is becoming much more group-like. It's becoming much more structured and organized, but you can do it on your own. And in the past 5 years, what you've seen is the new leadership of traditional organized crime are digital natives. So they understand cyber much better than their fathers did in the 1990s and the 2000s. And so you're beginning to see a fusion of the two types of crime. Now, we use that in the book for an absolutely key episode set around the port of Mumbai, where traditional and cybercrime come together to spectacular effect.
It also shows how vulnerable we are when it comes to technology. But it's been 10 years since the book came out. On the list of challenges we face right now, we have climate change to contend with, inequality, political polarization, etc. Where do you rank fighting corruption, organized crime?
Well, I would link it with one of the categories that you mentioned, and that is inequality. So at the heart of this are societies that are deeply unequal within themselves, country like Russia, country like Brazil, but also ferocious inequality between countries, so between the United States and somewhere like South Africa, for example. And this issue of inequality spurs on political corruption, and political corruption is a facilitator of organized crime. If you have vulnerable state offices, organized crime will seize upon that and will seek to influence the state so that it's unable to exercise its monopoly of violence on violence as effectively as it should.
And you use the example of Brazil.
Yes, I certainly do. Partly because I've written another book of mine is about Brazil, but that's very interesting in terms of how this works. I worked in a favela, the largest favela or slum in Rio. And what was interesting, I was writing the biography of the guy who ran the whole thing and who derived his money from selling cocaine, and a lot of it. But the reason why he was able to do that was because the state was not interested in the favelas for a long time. And then when cocaine became a big industry there, the people involved in trafficking it suddenly found that they could afford weapons, and really significant weapons, so that then the state could no longer actually physically enter into the favelas. And this guy, he liked to keep violence down to a minimum because he derived his support from the community, the poor community in the favela, because he provided a social welfare system that had not been there before. So gangsterism isn't always about, you know, psychopathic killers. It emerges out of really complicated situations. Poverty will often play a very important role. And so I don't see, and again, this is something we wanted to get over in the show, I don't see gangsters as necessarily being all good or all bad. Mm-hmm. There's a hell of a lot of in between. And as we saw in the brief clip, Alex, the main character, who's sort of being half-heartedly seduced by a young Israeli woman, she says, are you a gangster? And he says, close. And she says, a banker then. So, and he says, right. So we see the world of high finance, the people who facilitate large-scale organized crime, but who appear to be distant from it and having nothing to do with it. But in the show, what we do is we demonstrate actually there is a real connection between women being trafficked for sexual purposes from Russia into Egypt and then on to Israel, i.e. across cultures and across communities, and those people who are moving money or laundering money that are the profits of those ghastly trades in sophisticated places like London or New York.
Well, you made this great comment in The Guardian. You said that the people who understand corruption best are very poor people and very rich people. The stronger the middle class, the less powerful corruption is. Why is that?
And the less visible as well. Because if people are generally contented with their lives and they are earning a decent enough living and not having to cut corners or do immoral things in order to do so, they feel better about themselves. If, however, you have a small middle class and people are living in hand-to-mouth conditions and they are seeing the incredibly visible, ostentatious wealth of the very rich, and the very rich know how they became very rich because they're using the mechanisms of corruption and monopoly capitalism, then you have a society where corruption becomes often the only way you can survive and get ahead. So strong middle class, strong institutions are very important, but I'd add that we, in our seemingly comfortable lives in the West, we are complicit in certain respects. I think the most important way we're complicit, well, there are two ways. First of all, we consume illicit goods and services. We are the ones who people who organized crime want to sell to, because we pay top dollar for cocaine, for men who sleep with women who've been trafficked for sexual purposes, untaxed cigarettes, and then there's a growing middle class market in China and East Asia for products associated
like rhinos,
with endangered species, rhinos, ivory, and so on and so forth. So we're consumers, and that's a very important thing. But also, it's our institutions which enable the laundering of money. So if, for example, you take a city like Vancouver, the top 100 properties by value in Vancouver, about 50% of those properties are owned by anonymous companies, and neither the government of British Columbia nor the government in Ottawa knows who actually owns those properties or where the money which has bought those properties is derived from, because they can be anonymous behind these companies. This is a chronic problem in London, where, for example, if you take the iconic central London street, Baker Street, 50% of those properties in Baker Street are owned by people of whom we know nothing. We just don't know their identity, whether they're Colombian drug runners, whether they're Russian gangsters, whether they're Ponzi scheme hedge fund owners from New York. We don't know. Even the legendary 221B Baker Street, which is where Sherlock Holmes was alleged to have lived, is owned by an anonymous company.
How is this allowed to happen? Is it just because authorities just look the other way?
Because governments have looked the other way, because they don't want to dissuade anyone from coming and investing money in their countries. So you have a great irony in the United Kingdom at the moment, where the battle cry of the Brexiteers, the people who want to leave the European Union, and actually who are driving us there in an incredibly haphazard fashion, an incompetent fashion, I might add, they are always saying, we need to take back control from Europe. And yet, if you look at the London borough of Kensington, there are 6,000 properties which are owned by anonymous companies. The beneficial owner is unknown. In Westminster, in the very heart of London, 10,000 properties are owned by outsiders whose identity is unknown. Now, if you want to take back control, insist that the tax havens, British Crown territories, dependent territories like the British Virgin Islands or the Cayman Islands, they must come up with transparent registries so we know who is investing in our cities, driving up house prices, and quite possibly laundering money.
Well, I only have a few minutes left, but you've said that if to get rid of organized crime, something that you could easily do is just to legalize drugs. In Canada, marijuana is going to be legalized. What impact do you think that would have on organized crime here?
Well, this is a game changer, but it's a very complicated game changer. I think it's overdue. What I have never wanted to suggest is that you just legalize all drugs overnight and everything will be fine, because this is an extremely complex shift away from the war on drugs towards harm reduction, whereby people can access safe drugs for recreational purposes, whereby they will not use them and then get into a car and drive, because that's extremely dangerous, and where you don't create sub-criminal markets for one reason or another. Now, because it was individual states in the United States where we saw the legalization program get rolling, that makes things a lot easier for Canada.
Because we have a blueprint maybe to follow?
You've got a blueprint, but also you don't have the hostility that used to obtain in Washington towards any hint of decriminalization or legalization, as it was 10 years ago when I was writing this book. But you are a big producer of marijuana, obviously in BC, but actually across the country. And you're a big consumer, but you're also a big exporter. I would have preferred, in all honesty, to have seen the Liberal government come in and spend 2, 3, 4 years work out very, very carefully how this is to be done, because we've already seen in California that there are ambiguities and difficulties with legalization. They have the added problem that federal laws still, in theory, pertain in California, and Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, could turn around tomorrow and decide to send in the FBI to do something about the marijuana industry there. So we're at a very critical phase, and Canada's decision, while it's absolutely the right thing to do, and it is going to reduce the influence of organized crime without question, it has to be implemented with great care, with real judicious foresight as to where the difficulties may arise.
We have 30 seconds left, but I'd like to ask you one last question. What would you like the TV series to do that the book hasn't done?
Well, it's doing it already in the United Kingdom, where we are getting fabulous media coverage, because it's not just television journalists, it's in the news, it's columnists. We have something called the McMafia law now. We have all sorts of impact, and that's something that
What's McMafia law?
The McMafia law is so-called unexplained wealth orders. So if people have more property and assets than they can account for from their normal income, then those assets are liable to forfeiture, and that's just been introduced. So we have McMafia law, and everyone is now talking about this subject. What television drama, good television drama, gives you is a reach which virtually no book can ever have.
And so you can affect further change.
Absolutely.
Misha, it's been a pleasure to speak to you, and hopefully, fingers crossed, season 2.
Yes, I certainly hope so.
Thank you so much for being on the agenda. We appreciate it.
It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.